so much. And these feel very rustic, very good. Guys, I'm doing it. I sat down in my cozy corner in my house, and I'm filming a knitting pod. It's a podcast because you don't have to look at me when you watch this. You can just listen to me and do your own knitting. Like, I'm just going to talk about knitting. So, I love to knit. Hi, I'm Keziah. I love to knit. I love to talk. And yeah, I'm going to tell you about my current works in progress. I'm going to tell you about some yarn acquisitions. I might talk a little bit about books in here and like what book I'm reading, listening to. I'm an audiobook listener because I'm a knitter and I like to have my purring cat on the TV and knitting and my audiobook. That's like my ideal night. That's what I do every single night. So yeah, whips, yarn acquisitions, and what else is in podcast? Future projects? No, just gonna talk about what I'm working on. Whatever. Okay, let's get started. If you are here from TikTok or Instagram, or I'm quite active on both of those, mostly TikTok, but as we know, bye-bye. And so you've seen me the past 4 months knit. So I'll just preface. I'm working on an Esther sweater by Skappel Oslo. I have, since last summer in August, I have commissioned 4 of these sweaters, meaning 4 people have paid me to knit them the sweater. I've sent 3. Actually, I've sent 2. One is on my boards right now, and this is my 4 out of 4. Thank God. Because, don't get me wrong, this sweater is absolutely beautiful. This is how far I am into it, this far into the body, and then I have this much of the sleeve done. This sweater is absolutely beautiful, but excuse me, it is a pain in the freaking ass to knit. Just in the sense that it's a full body colorwork sweater. I love it. I love the pattern. I have memorized the pattern because it's my 4th time knitting it. But the pattern isn't necessarily super clear, which doesn't matter for me because it's my 4th time. Yeah, anyway. It's the Skappel sweater it's the Esther sweater by Skappel Oslo. I'm knitting this in a size medium. This yarn was sent to me by someone. She had bought this yarn from their store online, which is it was funny to me because, okay, so I've knit this is my 4th Esther sweater. I knit the first one, I'll put them to the side here. I knit my first one in the blue and purple colorway. Beautiful Skappel yarn. It's the Spinville yarn. Actually, let me get it. Give me a second. It's the Spinville yarn by Skappel. Like, they make their own yarn. And I knit the first one in the blue and purple colorway, and this blue, sorry, I'm all over the place. It was in these 2 colors. And then white being the main color. I'm still figuring everything out. Let me put you guys up so you can see my whole face. I knit that one in a size large. It took me forever because it was my first time knitting it, and it was a size large. So it took forever. My second one was in also Skappel yarn, in a white and pink, or purple, pink, white colorway, which I don't know why I haven't set this up. One second, let me get that yarn. It's all in my yarn shelf here. You know how it is. Pink, purple, white yarn. And this sweater, obviously you can see the difference between the pinks. Like, I'm knitting the pink and purple, but look at the difference between these 2 pinks, between sweater 2 and 4. So I don't know if Skappel like changed their dyes or anything for that, but it's a different pink. And this one's it's a lot darker. And Helene's pictures and all of the Skappel marketing that they've done, it's never been this dark of a pink. So I'm really happy that the girl sent me the yarn so she knows what it looks like and she'll be happy with it. And then the third sweater, the one that's on my boards right now, I knit with Cascade 220. A note on knitting the Esther sweater with Cascade 220, which I know is a really popular yarn and it's the same weight and everything, wouldn't recommend. I wouldn't recommend because some of the floats in this sweater are like 12, like the longest float is 12 stitches. Most of them are like 5, 6, 7, 8 stitches, the floats. And superwash yarn, catching floats with superwash yarn, it was horrible knitting a whole sweater in that because the difference between superwash and non-superwash, superwash is very smooth. It's very soft and moves around a lot on your needles. Excuse me. Non-superwash is great for color work because when you bring your yarn over, it sticks. Like once you pull your yarn and knit a stitch, that stays. So when I was knitting with the 220 superwash, I was constantly pulling my project down on my right needle to like really stretch it out before I switched colors. Like in between every color switch, I had to make sure that there was going to be no puckering, and I still had major puckering. So I soaked it for like 3-4 hours before I blocked it. I hope it didn't stretch out too much, but yeah, I don't really ever want to knit color work with long floats with superwash yarn anymore because it was just horrible. And now I'm like, this doesn't say, but I am 90% sure that the Spinville yarn is a superwash or non-superwash yarn because it is quite sticky, but at the same time, it's really soft. Like it's Norwegian wool. I really like it. I always rub it on my face to see if it'll be itchy or not. I really like the Spinville yarn. I'm kind of sick of knitting with it, but that's just because I've knit so much with it. I would really enjoy seeing what other colors they had. Yeah, so that's my Esther sweater. I'm debating whether or not to make a full-on video on tips on how to knit this Esther sweater or just tips on how to knit Norwegian patterns in general. Because I feel like I have a pretty good grasp on, especially this one. I've also knit the Annie. Not completely finished it, but it's the same. All of the patterns that Helene did with Skappel are structured the same. I've looked at not all of them. I have the Dagny pattern, I have the Annie pattern, I have the Esther sweater pattern, I have the Adventure sweater pattern. It's 4. Yeah. And they're all structured the same. And I also have a pattern from another collab that Skappel did with a different designer, and it's different. So once you got the construction down for one of her patterns with Skappel, you really have them for all because they're all the same. Like when I say structure, I mean bottom up, sleeves join at the yoke, knit the yoke, and the neck shaping is the same. The neck shaping was really the thing that got people with this, and it got me. I was in Facebook groups, I was on TikTok. That's why I posted so many TikToks about how to do it, what to do, because I was so confused with it. Anyway, yeah, that's the Esther sweater, my number 4 out of 4, maybe 4 out of 5. I might knit one for myself. I might commission someone else or like do a sweater swap with someone. I talked about this a lot. I'll make a post when I actually want to do this, but I want someone to knit an Esther sweater for me and then me knit them something, hopefully something that I've never knit before. Yeah, but I'm also a little nervous about that because the Esther sweater is hard and it takes like someone who has a decent amount of color work. I'm not saying you can't knit it if you don't have any experience with color work. Definitely not. I actually just had a girl in my DMs yesterday showing me a picture of what she had done, and she said it was her first ever knitting project, and I was like, girl, her floats were insane. 0 puckering. Like, I'm like, this is your first ever. Anyway, I'm not saying you can't knit it if you've never knit color work before, but I would feel better if someone had experience in color work. So maybe it'll be someone that I know on the internet. I don't know. Let's move on. My second whip is the Eva Cardigan by DirtbagKnits. One of my knitting goals this year was to knit more basic, a little less color work. Love me color work, obviously. But I want to knit myself some things. 2, knit some solid color things. It's solid color, but it is bright red. I found this yarn off of Facebook Marketplace. It's 220 Superwash. I love her. It's very nice to knit in the Eva Cardigan. I am knitting it on size 6 needles, which is her recommended needle size, but I tend to always size up with petite knit patterns on needles. But for this one, the sample is knit with Santa's Garn, and Santa's Garn is a really hardy wool. Like it's very lightweight. It's very lightweight, but when you knit it up, it's very sturdy and hardy. That's why I say that. So I wanted to make the thickest fabric possible with this, and the gauge on Cascade 220 is 20 to 22 stitches, 6 to 8 needles, like size US size 6 to 8 needles. So I wanted to create the thickest fabric possible and knit pretty tightly, which I will say I don't really ever do knit tightly because, like I said, the past 6 months of my life, I've just been knitting color work. And you can't really knit color work tightly necessarily and make it look amazing, especially with long floats. Like, it kind of has to be looser, and then it like blooms into its final shape once it's blocked. This hurts my hands, but I've been working on it for like 2 weeks. Honestly, I've only been working on it like, this is probably 4 days of work. Nights, I tend to just knit at night. Sometimes I tend to knit this just at night. So yeah, I enjoy it. It's a drop shoulder. I believe that's the construction. You knit kind of like a trapezoid in the back, and then you pick up stitches for the sleeves. So I really like the way that it works. This sits on the back part of your shoulder, so I'm like here with it, kind of. And I'm knitting increases on the panel, so it kind of creates like a V-neck shape. I really love this color. It's just a bright red. I'm a little worried about it because a sweater that I wear all the time that I knit with Cascade 220, it's the non-superwash version of Cascade 220. Excuse me, once I have a drink of Diet Coke, it's bad up there. I knit a sweater with the first thing that I ever finished and have worn with Cascade 220 has been a sweater. I knit it with the non-superwash version, and it is pilling pretty bad. So I'm a little nervous for that because I don't want it to pill like crazy, and I think it will. But I'm still going to knit it because I have the yarn. I got it off Facebook Marketplace. I'm going to knit something with it. I'm just curious to see how the pilling is between the superwash and non-superwash. I'm not really sure which one pills more, if any, but yeah, I'm about this far into it. This much of my skein left. I think it's really pretty. I love the red. I've said that like 4 times, whatever. And then my final whip, I'm a pretty monogamous knitter. Actually, that's not true in any sense. I have multiple projects on at one time, but I hyperfixate on one for like a week, and then I get tired and I switch if I don't finish it within that week. I knit a lot. So I've had this on my needles since the middle of December. It's just a little mitten that I'm freehanding. I want to design a pair of mittens. I'm starting to dabble in design. I'll talk about that later. And I want to design a pair of mittens. Like, I have a very specific idea, but then I realized I haven't knit mittens in 2 years. So I kind of forgot everything. And so I'm designing colorwork mittens. Before I decided to just go jump into some colorwork, I figured I'd just whip up myself a pair of some nice striped mittens with this Norwegian wool that I got from my grandma's cedar chest like a year ago-ish. No labels or anything. Actually, I think I took them off when I got it. I don't know why I did that. And it's super rustic, super fuzzy. You can see how fuzzy it is. But I really like it. I love working with Norwegian hardy wool, especially for mittens. Like, I don't need mittens to be super soft. I don't really care. I don't have a super high wool sensitivity. So I'm just about to decrease. I don't have another one. So that's definitely on the back burner. I'm focused on finishing my commissions before I start super designing. But moving on into yarn acquisitions, which have to do with some of my designing aspirations, I got some Kelborn Scout. I'm pretty sure I want to design a sweater, a colorwork sweater with Kelborn Scout. Pretty sure this is non-superwash. I'm like 99% sure because usually it will say superwash and this doesn't. I'm still pretty new into the non-Joann's and Michael's yarn. I'm really enjoying being out of it. Not completely out of it. That's ridiculous. I still use Joann's and Michael's yarn, but I'm really looking into like smaller businesses, not necessarily hand dyers, but smaller businesses or rustic wools or just things that I know will last a really long time when I knit with them and will keep me super warm and insulated. So I'm thinking I want to design a sweater with Kelborn Scout. So I got a full skein of this, and then Kelborn is really cool because they offer mini skeins, like sample skeins, but it's not like a 25-gram mini skein. I'm pretty sure these are 10 grams, and they send you a random color, but you can test out their yarns without buying a full skein. So these are $2.25 a piece. I got the Andorra, which is 60% merino wool. Oh, I forgot to say, yeah. The Scout's just 100% wool. It's 274 yards, 250 meters, 100 grams, and hanks. I believe this retails for like 16, maybe like 16.80, something like that, 16. So it's not cheap, but it's a small business. Oh, my phone went to 20%. I need to charge it. Yeah, I got the Andorra, which is 60% merino, 20% Highland wool, 20% mohair. I got some sample skeins because I'm still not 100% sure on what I want to knit the sweater in. And I thought it would be cool to, since it's a colorwork sweater, I could use some of these mini skeins for like a sample swatch in a way before I get my full yarn and knit my actual swatch. So this is 60% merino, 20% Highland, 20% mohair. I love this color that they sent it. It's beautiful. I got, if I don't knit my sweater in Scout, I want to knit it in BC Garn's Bio Shetland or Samelia. Not super sure about that one, but so I got both. They offer BC Garn samples, which is super cool. Like, they don't offer samples of much, but the two yarns that I wanted to knit the sweater in potentially, they offered it. I was so cool. These two together, which I love both these colors so much, and these feel very rustic, very good. Yes, I like. Don't know what this one is. It feels more. I think this one's more of a cottony mix. This definitely has some cotton in it. This looks like a chain knit construction. I don't know. I should probably look on my. Oh wait, this is this the Mojave, that one maybe, but they didn't come with a label. I don't know. I don't know if I like this one because I'm not a huge fan of cotton yarn, especially for a sweater, this sweater that I want. And then I got some Germantown, probably too bulky for what I want, but I wanted to see what the Germantown felt like. And then they sent me a sample of Scout, so I can kind of like combine these for my swatch. Yeah, so love that. Super cool that they offer this. And I can try out 7 different yarns for $10, $14, something like that. I love Kelborn. This is my first order ever from them, but I love their TikTok. Like, I follow them. I think they follow me. I don't know. But anyway. So I mentioned how I'm knitting a bunch of Skappel commissions. I am on number 6 of 7 right now. And I want to show you the yarn for my 7th sweater. So I've knit Esther, ENG sweater, adventure sweater, Esther sweater, and I'm knitting another adventure sweater, but in a different colorway. Are you ready? I'm obsessed. It's in the pink colorway. Anyway, it's beautiful. It's just so pretty. For the adventure sweater, the yarn that they send is the mink. Forgive me. It's a blow yarn in a chain net construction. It's absolutely beautiful. It feels like a wool, but at the same time, I think it has polyamide in it. It is a 78% Nordic lamb's wool. Pretty sure that's what it says. And then a 22% polyamide. So it's basically a polyamide. It's basically a polyester. I'm pretty sure it's the same thing. Chain. And then they blow wool into it. So cool. This creates a really stiff knit garment. It's not drapey at all. It's very stiff, but at the same time, sometimes you want that. It's very thick, pretty warm for being, it was so light. I remember blocking it, and even when it was wet, I'm like, is this wet? Because it's just so light. It dried super fast when I blocked it. Yeah, and it was a really easy sweater to knit, I will say. Like, very easy, especially compared to the Esther. It has 3 charts, but the charts are, I think, 4 repeats every 4 stitches instead of the Esther sweater, which is repeats every 40 stitches. Which once you know what you're knitting on top of with the Esther sweater, it's not hard. Like, I don't even look at the chart anymore because I just look at what I'm knitting on top of. I look at, okay, so I'm creating the snowflake. It's 6 stitches long. Every other row, I move 1 in. Like, you get it after a while, but it was really nice to have like a mindless color work knit. I'll add a picture in right here. I'm knitting a medium again for this. I knit a medium last time. And this is like a Skappel heavy video, obviously, because I'm a Skappel heavy person. One thing about these knit kits, they're not cheap, but they're always with Nordic. They're always with Norwegian lamb's wool, and they send you way more yarn than you need. Obviously, you can see from however many kits, I have so much. I probably have enough yarn from 4 kits to create a whole other sweater. Like, I'm not joking. They send you so much extra, but with the adventure sweater, since you're changing between so many different colors, you don't have a ton of extra yarn. Yeah, so I was debating on whether or not I wanted to knit this one on US 10.5s rather than US 10s to create a little bit more of a drapey fabric rather than a super stiff. Was just editing that and realized that my mic died. Super cool. First podcast video. Anyway, okay. So I was debating on whether or not to knit my second adventure sweater with a size US 10.5 needle because I kind of wanted to create a more drapey fabric rather than a super stiff fabric. But I'm concerned about doing that because I don't have very much left over from my 5 color changes on my first one. So I think I'm gonna have to knit it in a size 10. And that's all. That's the rest of what I was gonna say for this video. Yeah, subscribe if you want to see me knit chaotically and knit a bunch of color work. I really love color work. I'm starting to dabble in design. I said that. I am really excited for my designs, obviously, otherwise I wouldn't be designing them. They've been in my head for a really long time, but I really want to do them correctly. There's a lot of patterns out there where they're not tested and they don't have a tech editor, and I think it's really important to a have testers and a tech editor, because if you're charging $10 for a sweater pattern, like, you need to have more than small, medium, large sizes, and they need to be graded correctly, and you need to provide $10 worth of work for each person. You know what I mean? Like, I want to do it well. That's all I'm trying to say, is that I just really don't want to. I want to start out good with my design, so that's why I'm taking my time with it. I'm not rushing into it. A lot of times I will rush into things. I get very impatient, and I just want to move things along, but I'm really trying to take my time with these designs. So yeah, that was my first podcast. I don't know. Is it a podcast? I'm going to stop saying that now. Bye.